is on the air right now. I'm Carolina Coral in the studio. I welcome the Freedom viewers, and we're moving straight to the important news. 5 people were injured as a result of a Russian drone strike on a residential sector in the village of Zolochiv. That's in the Kharkiv region. According to the State Emergency Service, the enemy attack caused a fire. Destroyed private residential houses were burning over an area of 180 square meters. Rescuers eliminated the consequences of the attack, despite the threat of repeated Russian shelling. Over the past 24 hours, Russia has carried out 38 strikes on the Chernihiv region. As reported by the head of the Regional Military Administration, Vyacheslav Chaus, a 2-story administrative building and a power facility were damaged in one of the communities. In addition, a UAV hit a residential building in the village of Snovske and a fire broke out. In another village, an FPV drone damaged farm buildings. A 19-year-old guy was hospitalized with a shrapnel wound. Strikes also hit the transport infrastructure in the Mina community. 2 railway workers were injured. A 37-year-old train driver underwent surgery. He is in stable condition and is currently under medical supervision. 8 people, including 2 children, were injured as a result of Russian shelling of Kramatorsk on the night of March 18th. The Russian army dropped 2 aerial bombs on the city. 2 apartment buildings and more than 20 private houses, as well as vehicles, were damaged. Our correspondents visited the site of the Russian strikes.
My collarbone was also stitched up here. The child has a hematoma on.
Russian troops attacked Kramatorsk around midnight, dropping 2 Fab 250 aerial bombs on the city. The munitions fell in a residential area. Rescuers who arrived at the scene immediately began an operation to free people trapped under the rubble. As a result of this attack, 8 people were injured, including 2 children. 1 child is currently in intensive care.
We were standing there drinking tea in the kitchen. We were celebrating the child's birthday. Well, it took a second and, well, it burned my face and that was it. And the lights went out, you couldn't see anything. Everyone was screaming. Only I was injured and my eldest son a little bit. The youngest was lucky.
The blast wave also damaged 2 high-rise buildings and another 26 private houses. Some of them are completely destroyed and can't be restored. This is not the first such attack in this area.
I think it's up to 4.
Are you planning to leave?
We will. We'll clean everything up now, close it up, and leave.
You already know where you'll go?
We'll think about it now.
In addition to Kramatorsk, Yarova, Drushkivka, and Konstantinovka were under attack by the Russian occupiers. 3 people were injured there. Dmitro Glushko from the Donetsk region for the Freedom TV channel.
On the night of March 18th, Russian troops attacked the Odesa region with strike drones. As reported by the head of the Odesa Regional Military Administration, Oleg Keeper, a critical infrastructure facility and some equipment were damaged, but fortunately there were no casualties as a result of the attack. The fire that broke out at the strike site was quickly put out by rescuers. Work to clear the aftermath of the strike is still ongoing. Also overnight, Russia launched a combined strike on the Sumy region. In the Akhturka district, drones damaged civilian infrastructure. A fire broke out at the Silm. In the Krasnopilya community, an airstrike hit residential buildings. 2 people were injured. Also, the Russian army attacked an administrative building in the Zarychny district of Sumy with strike drones. As reported by the head of the Sumy Regional Military Administration, Olev Grigorov, a 16-year-old boy was injured. He was taken to the hospital. Medics are providing the injured boy with the necessary help. Information about casualties and other consequences of the strike is currently being clarified. On the night of March 18th, Russian occupiers launched 47 drones at Ukraine from 6 directions. These are Shahed, Gerbera, and Atomis-type strike drones, as well as other unmanned aerial vehicles. The Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine notes that of all the drones, more than 20 were specifically Shahed-type strike drones. Ukrainian defenders managed to neutralize 28 drones. The enemy's air attack was repelled by aviation, anti-aircraft missile troops, electronic warfare, and unmanned systems units, as well as mobile fire groups of the Defense Forces of Ukraine. On the evening of March 17th, Romania scrambled military aircraft due to the threat of Russian drones. The Romanian Ministry of Defense's surveillance systems detected drones near the country's airspace in the north of Tolcha County. 2 F-16 aircraft of the Romanian Air Force took off to monitor the situation, and air defense systems were on high alert. This was reported by the Romanian Ministry of Defense. In the Kupiansk direction, the defense forces stopped another assault by the Russian occupiers. Soldiers of the 14th Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine Ground Forces eliminated 18 Russians, along with 2 units of Russian armored vehicles and 11 ATVs. At least 5 more Russian invaders were injured. Overall, on the front over the past day, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine recorded 68 combat clashes, of which the enemy carried out 18 attacks in the Kupiansk direction. The hottest were Kostiantinivka, where the enemy carried out 46 assault actions, as well as Pokrovsk. There, the Russian army tried to push back the defense forces 72 times. The activity of the Russian occupiers also continues in the Huliapol direction. 31 combat clashes were recorded there. Atesh agents on the night of March 18th carried out another sabotage in temporarily occupied Crimea, just on the eve of the 10th anniversary of the official annexation of the peninsula by Russia. Partisans disabled a diesel locomotive at a railway station near Simferopol. This led to the disruption of supplies for Russian troops in the Zaporizhia direction. It was through this railway line that another batch of ammunition, spare parts, and consumables for military equipment was supposed to pass. The Atesh movement reported that the locomotive can't be repaired quickly, and thus its destruction effectively blocked these supplies, leaving Russian occupying units without their planned replenishment of supplies on the front lines. 1,710 Russian soldiers were eliminated by the Ukrainian defense forces in just the past 24 hours. Thus, the total losses of the Russian army have already exceeded 1,262,000 people. Also, the armed forces of Ukraine destroyed 3 tanks, 11 armored vehicles, 29 artillery systems, and 230 units of enemy motor vehicles in a day. The Swedish Security Service considers Russia the main external threat to the country and expects a growth in threats from the Russian Federation. This was stated by representatives of the agency in an annual report assessing the security situation for the country. The report speaks of Russia's covert measures of influence. For 2025, the service recorded hundreds of suspicious incidents. And so far, Sweden has not experienced serious attacks or classic sabotage, but there have been attempts at cyber attacks with a Russian trail. The agency also noted a significant espionage threat, and the terrorist threat in the country is rated at 3 out of 5. Overall, the Swedish Security Service predicts that in the coming years, the situation for the country will only worsen. Russia has expanded its support for Iran in its confrontation with the United States and Israel. Moscow is sharing intelligence and providing consultations on military cooperation. Iran is receiving assistance in modernizing Shahid strike drones. Russia is teaching how to operate drones and select targets. Recommendations are given on the number of launches and flight altitude. Moscow is also sharing data on the location of American bases in the Middle East and facilities of U.S. allies. Thanks to the support of the Russian Federation, Iran was able to hit targets in Jordan, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Oman. For the second night in a row, Iran attacked the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. Although the building is located in the fortified green zone in the city center, destruction could not be avoided. The attack was carried out with drones and missiles. Meanwhile, the U.S. has given urgent instructions for a security assessment to its embassies around the world. As reported by the Washington Post, the document was signed by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The U.S. Army launched strikes on Iranian missile positions in the area of the Strait of Hormuz. The operation was carried out on the night of March 18th. The targets were located on the coast of Iran. This was reported by the U.S. Central Command. The American military used heavy munitions. We are talking about bombs weighing more than 2 tons. According to U.S. data, anti-ship missiles were stationed at these positions. They represented a significant threat to global maritime shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. Now let's look at our main topics in more detail. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is visiting Spain for several meetings in Madrid. The highlight is his talk with Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. He has already explained and announced that Spain will allocate a new aid package to Ukraine worth 1 billion euros. In addition, the parties discussed further support for Ukraine, security issues, and bilateral agreements, and also signed a defense agreement between the countries.
It is my sincere hope that we will successfully and fully implement all of our various projects that we are currently agreeing upon, and that they won't be limited to just signatures on a page. On our part, on the part of the state, we will be monitoring this. I strongly believe in joint production between our countries. We are working together with the government and Spanish companies for the further technological development of our defense forces. Ukraine is fully prepared to share the valuable expertise and insights that we've acquired during the war, especially regarding drones, experience, and capabilities. And the Spanish defense industry can supply the shells, radars, and equipment that Ukraine needs. Our dedicated internal teams are actively working on this project in great detail right now.
Volodymyr Zelensky also visited one of the defense enterprises in Madrid. There, he familiarized himself with the equipment and production, met with the company's management, and discussed cooperation in the defense sector. 4 agreements were signed, and most of them are for the development of missile technologies and air defense. The parties also discussed joint projects to create long-range drones and strengthen the protection of Ukraine's skies. It is expected that the agreements will be implemented in the near future to strengthen the country's defense capabilities. Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Spain takes place the day after his trip to London. It began with an audience with King Charles III of Great Britain at Buckingham Palace. Volodymyr Zelensky held talks with Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the NATO Secretary General, and addressed members of the British Parliament. Ukraine's security is the security of Europe and the United Kingdom, emphasized the Speaker of the House of Commons, Lindsay Hoyle. See more details in our report.
Hostilities in the Middle East should not negatively affect support for Ukraine, stated United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer during a meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky. The main topics of discussion were Ukraine's energy security, diplomatic efforts to end Russian aggression, and the escalation in the Middle East.
Thank you for your support, for your personal efforts in providing us with assistance. And thank you to Great Britain, which has been with us throughout this difficult winter. We indeed had a very hard winter. And of course, I want to discuss energy security. Also, we shouldn't forget about our diplomatic efforts and negotiations and how things stand with the Americans and the Russians, as we need to discuss these sensitive topics. Yes, and of course, about the Middle East. It is having a major impact, I believe, on Ukraine and on you as well. So once again, thank you for all of your support, and thank you to your people.
Joining the efforts of London and Kiev to protect Middle Eastern countries from Iranian air attacks is one of the key issues in the talks between the Ukrainian leader and the head of the British government. According to Keir Starmer, it is vital to prevent Iran's ally, Russia, from benefiting from the conflict in the region.
I think it is very important to state clearly that the main focus must remain on Ukraine. Obviously, there is a conflict in Iran and the Middle East, but we cannot lose sight of what's happening in Ukraine and the need for our support there. And secondly, it is very important to state clearly and consistently that Putin cannot benefit from the conflict in Iran, whether through oil prices or the lifting of sanctions.
Volodymyr Zelensky and Keir Starmer signed a declaration on deepening cooperation in the fields of security and the defense industry. The United Kingdom will fund the creation of a new center of excellence for artificial intelligence within the structure of Ukraine's Ministry of Defense, according to the UK government website. A team of experts, which received funding of £500,000 will ensure the most effective use of artificial intelligence to gain an advantage on the battlefield.
We must collaborate closely and effectively with our partners and allies to guarantee the continued security both within our borders and across the globe. And this new partnership with Ukraine is for exactly that. Drones, electronic warfare, and rapid battlefield innovations are now central elements of national and economic security, and this is only intensified by the conflict in the Middle East. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, on the government website.
The British Prime Minister and the Ukrainian President discussed joint arms production with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Based on recent statements from Volodymyr Zelensky, the high-level discussions also focused extensively on the strengthening of Ukrainian air defenses and the provision of additional funding for the Pearl program. The president of Ukraine addressed the British Parliament. Kyiv is ready to share interceptor drone technology with partners and help build the necessary infrastructure at the British military base in Cyprus, Volodymyr Zelensky assured.
We are developing advanced drones capable of long-term and stable resistance to threats at sea. Soon, we will have systems capable of operating in ocean conditions. We are also focusing on the development of underwater systems. Thus, when we are confronted by various threats in the Black Sea, we work to develop the most effective solutions. And these solutions can also be highly beneficial for your own operations, particularly in difficult situations like the one that is developed in the Strait of Hormuz. Drones can solve problems that sometimes even the traditional Navy forces might struggle to handle.
The talks between Keir Starmer and Volodymyr Zelensky in London were the first meeting in a strategic dialogue format. The initiative reinforces the 100-year partnership agreement that the UK Prime Minister and the President of Ukraine signed in January 2025. The parties committed to strengthening relations in security, trade, transport, energy, justice, science, culture, and foreign policy. Andriy Dmitrenko for Freedom TV Channel.
Negotiations between Russia and Ukraine are being delayed due to the situation in the Middle East, as President Trump has focused on Iran. This was stated by President Volodymyr Zelensky in an interview with the BBC. However, he added that despite major geopolitical changes, the negotiators communicate with each other daily.
I have a good feeling about the impact of this war on the situation in Ukraine. America's focus is more on the Middle East than on Ukraine, unfortunately. That's why you see that our diplomatic meetings, trilateral meetings, are constantly being postponed. And there's only one reason: the situation in Iran.
It's naive to think that if you give Russia something like territory, it will suddenly stop and end the war against Ukraine. On the contrary, it'll only have an incentive to go further. This was stated by Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine, on Freedom TV. According to him, the concept of war against Ukraine is the foundation of what is currently keeping the Russian Federation itself from collapsing.
This whole idea of give something to Russia and everything will stop. But it's so naive, I don't even know. It just needs to be taught by now, right? I mean, are you seriously saying that you give the aggressor what he couldn't take by force? You're resisting effectively, you give it to him, and he hasn't achieved his goals. He says he missed his goals, and since he's getting something, he'll stop. For them, the war in Ukraine is vital. It keeps the Russian Federation from collapsing. They can't get out of it. For them, war is their very identity. They are inside this war. They're acting out all their complexes, fears, and so on. They hate us, and they came here simply to kill. There are no reasons for war here. We had no territorial disputes with them, nor any ideological disputes. It was all an artificially created propaganda sham.